Okay, so we got a quiz today, right? We'll have the quiz in a bit, but let me talk about the lab task. Then we can have the quiz and we'll get some carry on what we did this thing. So I've uploaded this. Our theory class is a few buttons placed for the basic calculator. This is mainly made for the digits to go in there. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 will have 10 digits. Right in here, we can have the other buttons as well. I think I have saved the image of the calculator right in here inside the project. So if you download that, you can have a look at it. I'll also leave it open because some of you may have issues with internet. So yeah, this is the image that I'm talking about. That this is how our calculator will look like, and if you'd notice, we got all these digit buttons, and then we have plus, minus, multiplication, and division, all these buttons arranged in such a way. So what I want from you in the lab class is that you will complete this interface. I'm not asking about these buttons, but at least you'll have the other buttons placed. So first of all, I need to see whether you can work with singular. That was the tool that we were using in class. So it's pretty much drag and drop stuff. You drop them in place and they will look like that. And after that's done, I want you to write code for these buttons. We briefly looked at a copy button that copies text from one text field to another. It was a really simple thing. But over here, when you press 1, what is going to happen is that you will have 1 written over here. If you press 1 again, then it becomes 11. And so it goes. Okay? So I want you to write code for that. Hello. Okay, so we got all these buttons, and the actions, they need to work properly. So for one, we'd have these numbers written, and in order to do that, you sort of have the knowledge already. So for example, if you have a field, so in this interface, in this program, we don't have any text field. Okay? So what you may want to create to start with, I want you to create this user interface. That means add the necessary buttons, add a text field, and call it, let's say, display text field. So it will have an ID. This thing will have a particular ID, display text field. Now once you have that, I need you to write code to make sure that these buttons, they work. So if I press 2 and then press 1, you'd have 21 written over here. How does that work? Well, at the press of a button, we can call set text. Okay, so the buttons to work. And that's the other task. Here's the hint. If you say display field dot set text 1, then what will happen is that in that display field you only have 1 written. Actually, this is display text field. Okay, so with that we can actually replace. So if you had a box over here, we'd have 1 written. If you press 2, then that 2 would be replacing this 1 over here. It's not going to be written right beside it because we're just setting the value. But if you need to add two things, you need to add two strings using concatenation. You need to join two strings, form a number. Okay, this is what I want you to try out. For example, if you have hello and you use plus, that does string concatenation, and you type in world, it becomes hello world, like that. And that's the hint. Okay, how so? Let's say we have 1, 2 written somewhere in that display text field, and you read that as a string, and afterwards if you add 1 to that, this becomes 1, 2, 1. That's how you keep forming a number. So that's our task. We don't have a text field right now. This is what I want you to try. That you take the base code, if you can download it from the internet. We have already uploaded this thing into our Bitbucket repository. But if it's not working for you, because you don't have internet connection with some of the computers, you can just go ahead and create a new project, a Java FXML project, and then create this interface. It will take much time. So start with that, get the buttons in, get the text field in, and after that's done, you have to write code for each and every one of these buttons. The digit ones. That's the lab task. It's a very simple lab task for today, but I want you to get a feel of how to use SimBuilder and use the NetBeans IDE along with that. We will need that experience for the remaining part of the course. So what I'm going to do is I will have this in front of you, and you can have a look at the picture as well. So that's how this thing looks like. I will set it on the side and freeze the window, and you guys can keep on working. So that's one thing, and before we get there, I'd like to be done with the quiz itself. You'll get 10 minutes for that. I'll be distributing the questions, and then you answer them. And as I have mentioned before, we have some multiple choice questions. So we have some fill in the blanks. Altogether there are 10 of them. Make sure that you write your name and ID. There are placeholders for your name and ID. Make sure you write them down. And yeah, that's pretty much it. 10 minutes, 10 questions. Any question about the quiz itself? This is meant to be individual quiz, so you answer yourself. Do not look around, don't look into textbooks or any such thing. Alright, I'll implement a bit of these things. For those of you who are a bit lost, we'll talk about that. But before we get there, I just wanted to go over the question of the quiz. There were two different sets with mostly the same question, but there were some differences. So the first question of this one, the Java compiler turns Java source codes into what? Bytecodes, right? So option C. Okay, so that's the answer. Instance variable maintain the what? States of the object. Okay. The area of the memory that holds all the Java objects is known as what? The heap. So it seems that if you answered C blindly, then you get all of them correct. The text file in Java archives, the jar files that tells us which class holds the main method is known as what? The manifest. And I haven't talked about these two things, right? I haven't talked about the heap and the manifest in class, not even really about the states. But these are all the stuff that you can learn about if you go through the textbook. Yeah, this one's easy. This is object-oriented programming. Okay, so this is one of the recent materials we are covering. Yeah, square inherits from shape, circle inherits from shape. So shape is the superclass. What is this one? Dash just means that a subclass redefines one of the inherited methods when it needs to change or extend the behavior of the method. Yeah. Overriding means that when you redefine something. Some of you wrote override, not overriding. I will give you marks for that, not a problem. But this is what it is. Okay, we use the override annotation to say that this is redefining the method. The answer is that. I think one of you guys wrote annotation. That's not going to work. So annotations, there are many different types of annotations, not just this one. This one in particular talks about the redefinement. Okay, we got two questions that look pretty much the same, but they are different. Things an object can do, and things an object knows about itself. We got the same set of choices. What's the answer for the first one? Methods, because this is about operation, this is about doing something. And things an object knows about itself. Instance variables. These are the values that we retain. That's how we know about something. So the first one's methods. The one over here, that's instance variables. And the last one, a class is or an dash of an object. The answer is blueprint. Okay, so that's for the first set. The second one, let me go quickly over these things because some of the questions are repeated. The Java compiler turns Java source code into none of these because the option is not there. Bytecodes is not here. Which method is used to test or launch or start? That's the main method. But we do have other methods if we talk about JavaFX applications. Well, it still starts from main, but then something else gets called. The area of the memory, it's the same question, it's just the order of the choices are different. The manifest is over here. This question is new over here. Java virtual machine. And we talked about this guy already. And this one we covered as well. These two are again, well, all of these are covered already. Knows about itself is instance variables. Stuff it does is methods. And this one down here is the blueprint. Okay. Alright, so how many of you got all 10 correct? Nobody? 9? Oh, that's good. 8? Okay, that's good. 8. Let us set another target for the next class then. I'm planning to have 6 such quizzes. If I can go for 6, maybe we'll go for 5, but we'll try. So it's like for every class from now on, we'll have a quiz in every lab class. The date is going to be Monday again. This time around it's going to be in March. 5th of March, March 5. Syllabus is going to be chapter 3 from the first one. Okay, and the same old drill, like we'll have 10 questions, 10 minutes, and MCQ and fill in the blanks. Okay? Okay, so let us get back to this project that we had, this basic calculator thing. First of all, we need to add a few things over here in the FXML document. So I need to open that with Scene Builder. And as you can see, we got all these buttons placed, but we don't have any text field. So first of all, I need to get this text field down here. The problem is when you put the text field over here, it only occupies a single cell, but we want it to cover all these cells. So here's a nice option right in here that allows you to play with the layout of it. I can say column span 2 to span across 2 columns, or 3 columns, then it takes 3 columns. And if you want it to go all the way, you just say remaining, so it takes up the entire space. Is this thing clear? So row span and column span, those are used for this purpose. And you'd find one such thing over here, this plus button. It spans across 2 rows. It's different from the other buttons. So if you take a button, let's say I take this button and I can duplicate this. I can duplicate over here. These are going to be the, which buttons? The dot and percentage buttons. So we can put a dot over here, we can put a % sign over here, and then we need a button, the plus button, that covers these 2 cells. So what we can do is we can duplicate this again, and this is going to be our plus button, right? We place it over here, and where it says row span, we change that to remaining or to 2. Well, let me just say 2. It will mean the same thing. It comes over here. You see, the reason it doesn't grow any bigger than that is because we have a height set. Minimum height, maximum height, we have that set. So what we should do over here is that we should change the minimum height to double plus some extra of what we have. So the minimum height now is 60 pixels. Maximum height is again 60 pixels, preferably 60. 60 is going to be a little less than what we need though. If you look at this UI design right here, and if you sort of imagine a horizontal line going through here, another horizontal line over here, you see that there is a bit of gap. Because we have some gap in between these two rows, right? That needs to be added so that it takes up that much space. So you need to play with those numbers a bit. So minimum height, let's try with like 65 and see if this is going to be too big. Yes, it's too big because it changes the size itself. So instead of 65, let's try with 62. That again. I'll stick with 62. I think that would be for now. So it's slightly better, perhaps, but we need to update these values as well. Okay. And it stays there. So you can do the rest of the buttons in the same way. I probably don't have to do it for all the buttons. What I intend to show though is how you can write code for each and every one of these. So first of all, how do I write code for this first button? But before we get there, we need to interact with this text field, and that's where this display field, text field will come, right? This is the name of that text field. So select that and go to the code part. You write it as the ID. So we assign that bit, and we need to save this fxml document. Then we go back to our controller. See, initially the controller, it doesn't have anything about that display text field. It doesn't have any such thing, but we need that to write some code. So what we do is we go to our project, right click on the fxml file and hit make controller. This is what we did in our theory class. I showed you how to do it. And that's what I expected, that if you know how to deal with these things, then you should be able to do it over here. You see, over now it says add fxml. That's an annotation to say that it's related to the design itself. But this label over here, we don't need that, so you can discard that. This one doesn't have any fxml. We take that off as well. The initialize, again, it doesn't have add fxml, but this is something you shouldn't throw away, because this method will take place as soon as this method would get executed as soon as the UI loads up. So this is important. But the other methods, if it doesn't have fxml, we can throw it away unless we wrote them ourselves. So right now I want to work with the 0, I want to work with this 1, 2, and 3, and so on. So let us just start with this one. I want to write some code. So we need a method. Let's say handle one action. So it's going to do the action. What happens when someone presses this one? We have to save this file and then go back to fxml document, make controller, and over here we get this. So this is the part of the code that gets executed as soon as someone hits 1. Okay, what do we want to do when someone presses 1? We show 1 over here in that display field. Okay, the way we do that, we say display text field dot set text 1. And before we go any further, let us just test it out if it works. So if you press 4, if you press 2, if you press 3, nothing happens, and that's how it is. But if you press 1, you suddenly see 1. If you press 1 again, nothing really happens because it's just replacing the one that's there. Is this thing clear? So then you can imagine that we write the same piece of code, but we do it for 2. So we can write, for example, handle 2 action, and then save that, go back to the controller and sort of copy paste this part. And we have 2. Okay, so if you run this project now, they work. But I cannot write 21, I cannot write 12, I cannot write 11 because I'm replacing whatever I have. Is this thing clear? So the next is, how can you use this part, this hint that we got? So first of all, if you have 2 in here and I want to write 21, what do I need to do? I need to know what's written over here. I need to capture that. Once I know this, I have to add 1 to that. That's how I make 21. If I want to make 22, it's the same story. Grab whatever I have over here, then add 2 to that at the end. And this is where the speed will come in handy. Let's say I have 12. I want to add 1 extra 1 to that. I need to know this part first. And that's something I get from here. Once I have this, I can add to this. And then whatever I have, I can send it back to this one. So, how do we put all these knowledge together? First of all, we need to know what was the old value. So if you do get text, you'll get the old value, and that you can put it in a old value over here. Okay, that's something what was written over there. And once you know the old value, you can construct the new value as the old value plus we are pressing 1, right? That's why we have to add a 1 right at the end. And then we need to set that back to that display text field. Okay, get the old value, add 1 to it right at the end, and then set it back. I mean, we could do it in this way, or if you have went through the string class, you'd see that there is a method called concat. That's for string concatenation. You could also write 1 over here. So they mean the same thing. Let me write it in both forms. So this one and this one, they say the same thing. Okay, so I'm just going to keep one of them. Okay. And we can test this out. So let's say I got 23 written. Now if I press 1, previously it would have erased this thing and replaced that with 1. But now we'd see 231. If I press 1 again, we have 3, 2, or 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 1. So every 1 that I type is getting added to the very end. But if I press 2 now, everything goes away and this is what we get. Why so? Because that's what we wrote. We just replace that with a 2. And that's not something we want. This thing works, but as soon as you hit 2, it's gone. So how do we fix that? By copy pasting our code. Right? So let me do it in the other way this time around. So add a 2. Because this is about handling the 2 action. Okay, so let us give it a try. Yeah, we can add many 2's and we can add many 1's at the end. This is how it's meant to work. Is this thing clear? Now, if you understand how to write these 2 methods for these 2 buttons, this is not rocket science. You can do it for the remaining digits. You can do it for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 3 over here and 0 over here. You can do it for all of them. Okay? It is going to be a tedious process though. It's going to be a lot of repetition, which is something I don't really like. But you already have the code, and you will copy paste that and change only one thing down there. It's not really an ideal way of writing code. Okay, we can do better than that, but this is something we can do later on as we learn a few more things. We are going to use inheritance over here and a bit of polymorphism to take care of this thing, but that's something I will cover when we go through polymorphism first. We'll revisit this problem. Okay. For now, let us just waste a bit of time and do it ourselves. Do it for all the 10 buttons. Okay. Alright, so assuming that we can do this part, we can do it for the whole thing. In our next class, we'll see how we can get these buttons to work, the actual arithmetic operation, the plus, minus, multiplication, division, and how we can get them to work. We will see that in our theory class. However, I want to give you a little bit of a challenge over here. You see, we have a special button, that's button 0. Let me write code for this one. Let's update this. Alright, if I copy paste this thing for 0, it should work. It's just that we have to put a 0 here. No big deal. And it would sort of work okay. Say I want to type in 120, I can do that. I can put multiple ones, I can also put multiple zeros. No big deal, alright? The problem is, we can also type in a lot of zeros followed by 21. And that really doesn't make much sense because these are leading zeros that carries no value. If you look at this calculator over here that we have in our operating system, we have the same problem. Okay, it allows for multiple zeros, but if you do any operation now, this thing plus 1 equal to 1, 2, 2, 3. The leading zeros are gone. Okay, so that is something we have, but wouldn't it be nice if we can make our calculator a little bit better, that we can't even type all these extra leading zeros. We can add 0 right at the end, but we won't be allowed to add leading zeros to start with. So what you need to do to fix this is to, let me leave it as a homework. Okay, so an appropriate logic to check if there are any leading zeros. If I want to put in the number 0 itself, by itself, then that's fine, but I won't be able to put 0, 0. 1, 0 is alright, but 1, 0 followed by any number is not alright. If I type in 0 and then I type in 1, that 0 should be gone. Is this thing clear? Okay. So I want to leave this as a homework to see if you can take this code and add your logic and make changes. And I'll give you a hint. Use the starts with method from the string class. And how do you know what that starts with method does? It's pretty much evident, but you can also right click over here and say show Javadoc. That would open up your browser window and show you the string class. It probably takes some time over here, but yeah, you see that's coming up. So we have the string class, and I want you to look at starts with method. So yeah, you can look what it does. You can get the detailed description of it and sort of try to understand if you can use that method there. That's a hint. If you want to do it in another way, feel free to do it. I don't mind. Okay, so you can use starts with, or you can also use character at. But use that judiciously, understand what it does, and then use that. Is the task clear? Okay. So this is what the lab task was, to write the actions for these buttons, which I did for 3 buttons, and I'm leaving you with 1 homework. So next class, when's our next class? Thursday, right? So yeah, not a problem. March 1 is alright. Okay, so in our next class, I'll cover the other stuff, the arithmetic operations. But before you come to the next class, please have this part done. Any question about any of these things?